Despite what the Zionist-controlled mass media has been spoon-feeding you for the past several decades, the roots of modern terrorism are not Islamic in origin, but in fact trace its roots to a much different culprit, one in which you would not expect. We go back to the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. It was a criminal act that this country was even formed. It was a colonial occupation and land theft from the beginning, taken through murder, terrorism, and built on the blood and ashes of the Palestinians. Zionists from Europe massacred their way through Palestine, killing and conquering, leaving massive pools of blood in their wake. An early example of such treacherous Jewish terrorism was the bombing of the Hotel King David in 1946.
After a bomb explosion caused by terrorists on the British headquarters at Jerusalem, one entire corner of the King David Hotel, a building of 7 stories, was razed to the ground. The stone floors were cut clean.
In scenes eerily reminiscent of New York 55 years later, the Jerusalem bomb was the beginning of terrorism as a media event, designed to capture the world's attention.
The latest casualty list included 65 killed, 47 injured.
The perpetrators, Zionist Jews, members of Menachem Begin's Irgun terrorist network. Begin, who would one day become Prime Minister of Israel, described this tactic as turning Palestine into a glass house, where the entire world was looking. The terrorist bomb was hidden in 7 milk churns and delivered in a hijacked pickup truck to the hotel's basement kitchen.
We jumped out and everyone took up their positions. I took the churn and started to run. I was thinking, how do I get to the place where I have to put the churn down? That's how I started. Anyway, there were lots of people around in the corridor, and we tried to move them out of the way. Here, there, to the side. But there were some who resisted, but we threatened them with our weapons. I wasn't dressed as a civilian or a soldier. I was dressed like an Arab, with a jalaba and a keffiyeh, with that ring on your head. You know, like, what's he called? The leader of the Arabs. You know, Arafat. There were 7 churns, weighing 350 kilos in all. I ran until I reached the place where I had to put it down, with the churn on my shoulder. I carried on, until I got to the place where the British people were. I saw a pillar that used to be here, and I put the churn down and ran away immediately. I waited in my position until all the churns were together, and then the time would come for the explosion. All the churns together were like one whole man, a complete bomb.
The bomb went off at 12:37 and was devastating. But of the 91 dead, only 28 were British. 17 Jews died alongside 41 Arabs. Of all these, 54 were innocent civilians, unconnected to the British authorities in any way.
It's classic terror.
Fast forward to 1954, Israeli terrorists strike once again with Operation Susanna, now known as the Levant Affair. In the summer of 1954, 9 Egyptian Jews recruited by Israeli military intelligence firebombed American and British targets in Cairo and Alexandria in the hopes that it would be blamed on local Muslim activists. The effort was designed to sour the burgeoning relationship between Egypt, America, and England. The Israeli false flag terrorist plot would have worked if it weren't for one of the terrorist bombs exploding prematurely in his pocket, ensuring his capture and the roundup of the entire spy ring. In 2005, Israeli President Moshe Katsav held a ceremony honoring 2 of the surviving Jewish terrorists who participated in the plot. Undeterred by the embarrassing debacle that was the Levant Affair, it didn't take long before the Jewish fanatics were at it again. An incident worth mentioning that became infamously known as the Cave of the Patriarchs Massacre occurred on the day of Purim in 1994. An American-born Jew named Baruch Goldstein walked into a Hebron mosque armed with grenades and an automatic machine gun, locked the door behind him, and opened fire into a crowd of 300 innocent Muslim worshippers, killing 30 Palestinians, wounding hundreds of others. Militant Jews later built a shrine in his honor. The incredible facts listed herein are virtually unknown in the Western world. None of these events are ever even mentioned in history classes. Deceitful people have been working tirelessly to conceal these facts and keep you in the dark when it comes to real history. The sheer number of Israeli false flag operations is astounding and could not be covered in this video, but there is one other that is worthy of mention.
The Israeli newspaper Ma'ariv has reported Israel's former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly said the September 11th attacks have been good for Israel. Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq." End quote. Netanyahu then reportedly said these events, quote, "swung American public opinion in our favor."
As the world watched in disbelief, 5 Israelis, later discovered to be Mossad operatives, were seen dancing with joy.
You could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked.
Curious, these Israelis had video cameras aimed at the Twin Towers prior to the first plane strike and were seen congratulating one another afterwards.
I thought it was very strange.
Amazingly enough, we have found the moving company where the 5 Israelis worked.
Was this building being used as a front for some kind of Israeli intelligence operation that possibly was doing surveillance on the Arab American community? Were there men celebrating or slapping 5s or whatever?
We had received an all-points bulletin, and I just happened to see the van and, you know, hollered over to my lieutenant, you know, I think that could be the van. We checked it out, and it was. You know, we were all on edge, obviously, so I really wasn't looking to make friends with these people, and neither were the officers that I were with. Once we started talking to them, you know, they were pretty much like, hey, you know, we're not against you, we're with you.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
Is this the makings of yet another Mossad operation? Indeed, further confirmation that the Israelis were behind 9/11 came in the form of a van packed with explosives that was stopped approaching the George Washington Bridge.
In and around the World Trade Center. And word late tonight that 2 suspects are in FBI custody after a truckload of explosives was discovered around the George Washington Bridge. That bridge links New York to New Jersey over the Hudson River. Whether the discovery of those explosives have anything to do with other events today is unclear. The FBI has 2 suspects in hand, said the truck load of explosives, enough explosives were in the truck to do great damage to the George Washington Bridge.
More still, another group of Israelis detonated a van on 6th and King Street, which literally had a painting on the side depicting a plane crashing into New York and exploding.
Spencer, I got a message on that plane. It's a big truck with a mural painted of an airplane diving into New York City and exploding. I don't know what's in the truck. The truck is in between 6th and 7th on King Street. We have both suspects under K. We have the suspect who drove in the van exploded. We have both of them under K. Let's get some help over here.
All of these vans and Israelis in them were working under the cover of a fake moving company called Urban Moving Systems, which turned out to be a front operation for the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency. The Israeli owner of the company, Dominic Sitter, promptly fled the country a mere 3 days after the attacks.
A passerby took these photos of the police searching the van. 5 men were inside it. Some had dual nationalities and were carrying more than one passport. Others had flight tickets to leave the US within days. Fearing robbery, one had over $4,000 hidden in a sock. Their boss at Urban Moving, Dominic Suter, was questioned by the FBI, but then disappeared back to Israel. It left lots of unanswered questions and fueled suspicion about the 5 men. Investigators seized the firm's computers, and the investigation took on a new urgency with multiple lie detector tests. Paul Kurtzberg admitted serving in an Israeli army anti-terrorist unit. He refused to take a lie detector test for 10 weeks.
As if this evidence isn't damning enough, all one has to do is look at the Jewish owners of the World Trade Center complex. 6 weeks before 9/11, 2 dual Israeli-American citizens, Zionist Jews Larry Silverstein and Frank Lowy, purchased a 99-year lease of the entire World Trade Center complex and took out a massive insurance policy specifically covering acts of terrorism. A suspicious move considering the Twin Towers were nearly worthless as they were filled with asbestos that needed to be removed. Stranger still, lucky Larry Silverstein cheated death on 9/11 when he skipped out on a routine business meeting that took place every morning in Windows on the World restaurant at the top of the North Tower. The convenient destruction of these buildings on 9/11 afforded both men hefty billion-dollar insurance settlements. Both men were personal friends with top Israeli officials, Benjamin Netanyahu, Ariel Sharon, and Ehud Barak.
In the days before, I think, the World Trade Center, or the Twin Towers, fell, I understand you had daily breakfast meetings with people, I think, in the Windows of the World, the famous restaurant, the World Trade Center.
That's correct.
But you weren't there for breakfast on the day of September 11th. Why was that?
That morning, my wife had made an appointment for me at the dermatologist, who I have to visit with regularity, right? And as I'm dressing to go to the dermatologist that morning, I looked at my wife and said, you know, I've got so much to do downtown. Cancel the dermatologist. I've got to go downtown. She got upset. She said, you can't cancel. You've got to go.
Was that Larry Silverstein's luck?
It was clearly my luck. It was clearly my luck. It was clearly my luck.